I get inspired thinking about all the incredible things that we can do to better understand our place in the universe. It's hard enough between humans to communicate. Even if we speak the same language, sometimes we mess up. Often we hear about, like mathematics is the language of the universe, that aliens are certainly going to use mathematics. But the problem, mathematics is not the language of the universe. It's the language with which we understand the universe. And there may be some nuance and some differences in mathematics for another being, another civilization, that means they're using mathematics in a much different way to understand the universe.
Just quickly to introduce yourself, we would like you to explain what you do in one sentence and why you're excited about it, to hear it from your perspective.
I'm an astrobiologist and communicator of science. I also work for the nonprofit called Blue Marble Space, where I direct the communications and marketing for the nonprofit. I'm the director of an online internship called the Young Scientist Program, and I get inspired thinking about all the incredible things that we can do to better understand our place in the universe.
Amazing. So this is kind of touching on what you were talking about earlier at the panel and about the golden record. But if you were to see aliens, what's the first object you would show them from Earth and why?
Wow, what the first object I would show them from Earth? I mean, the Voyager Golden Records are a great example of us trying to encapsulate in one very small collection of media everything it means to be human, and yet certainly some things were left out. We're missing out on so much of the music and the language and the culture and the history of everyone. So it'd be hard to pick one specific thing to represent all of us, I think. I do love the idea, though, of maybe showing them part of our history. And so maybe taking an artifact or a piece of human past to show them that we understand that we are a lineage of existence, that time has passed for us, and that the same way that we are aliens to them, our ancestors are somewhat alien to us.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that aliens don't speak our language. They don't know what we know. So being able to communicate with them is going to be very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard enough between humans to communicate. Even if we speak the same language, sometimes we mess up and we kind of miss out on things. There's gestures, there's unseen cues. Sometimes we have our own biases in the things that we're saying. But then even amongst different populations of humans with different languages, there are a lot of things that get lost in translation very often. And then you imagine the other intelligent species on our planet we share the planet with. Things like bats or octopuses, whales, crows, and other corvids. So many incredible, intelligent beings, and yet we still don't really know what they're saying. We're working on it. We're going to use AI to try to figure out whale song and maybe eventually try to figure out how to have communication with these other organisms. But it's hard enough amongst intelligent beings on Earth. And so imagining a being or a civilization evolving on another biosphere with an entirely different lineage in their existence, there may be some things that are very, very different.
Yeah, I remember reading about the golden record, how they were using hydrogen atoms as a way of communication. How would you communicate with an alien?
That's great. So the concept of showing the hydrogen atom was a way of showing our basic understanding of elemental chemistry. When we first started doing SETI and looking out into the cosmos, we were looking at a very specific band of radio radiation, of radio wave radiation that is released from molecular hydrogen in space. It's something that we understand is there, they should understand is there. Sometimes we multiply these things by pi or some other number because it's a thing that they should mathematically understand as well if they're going to communicate in the same way that we do. And yet some things are probably missing. And so my friend Sarah Walker has this phrase that she says that I find very valuable, because often we hear about, mathematics is the language of the universe, that aliens are certainly going to use mathematics. But the problem, and as Sarah phrases it, is that mathematics is not the language of the universe. It's the language with which we understand the universe. And there may be some nuance and some differences in mathematics for another being, another civilization, that means they're using mathematics in a much different way to understand the universe.
Okay, that's very interesting. And now looking a little closer to Mars, what's more likely, discovering microbes on Mars or finding life in your fridge that you forgot about during your field research?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the fridge, obviously. We've been looking on Mars for a long time and we still haven't found anything. I'm a huge fan not only of looking for extinct life on Mars, because we know Mars early on was very wet. It likely had a more clement atmosphere and surface conditions for life as we know it. And so there might be some remnant of an ancient Martian biosphere. I mean, heck, maybe even life came from Earth to Mars or vice versa, but maybe there's Earth life on Mars that has evolved for some period of time. But I'm also a huge fan of the idea of extant life on Mars, that there might be a remnant biosphere of living things still today on Mars.
Yeah, underneath the surface where water was just recently found.
Exactly. And maybe very, very deep. So far with our rovers, we've only drilled, a few tens of centimeters. With the InSight, we drilled fairly far, but even then, we're still only looking at a meter of depth. We're not going very deep, which is really close to the surface. If we could get a kilometer of drilling down into the Martian subsurface, I would be very excited to see those samples and see what they show us.
Definitely. How long do you think it's going to take before we can get there technologically?
Here's the thing about Mars exploration, especially with humans. When I was a young child in the 1990s, I'm a little older. In the 1990s, I went to NASA's Space Academy, basically space camp, when I was 13. And I was so excited about space exploration back then. I still am, but I was so excited about space exploration. And I remember the counselors at the camp telling me, in 20 years, your generation will be the first to go to Mars. And then I got a little older, I went to college and I started doing science communication. And I would talk to young scouting students or young students at a local elementary school or at a church. And we talk about Mars exploration. I'd be like, in 20 years, your generation will be the first to go to Mars. And then nearly 20 years later, as I was wrapping up my PhD program, I was at a museum where I was doing some volunteer work. And I remember hearing one of my colleagues at the museum telling some children, in 20 years, you'll be the first to go to Mars. And I realized we need to stop that kind of language. And we need to stop saying like in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. What we need to do instead is build vision together and how we're going to do it. And if anything, I mean, it's going to happen faster now than ever before, but it still could be pretty far off in the future if we don't work together to make it happen soon.
Definitely. That's something I like about space is how it's the next frontier for everyone, you know? So it's a great way to bring us all together. Thank you.